TipTut.
Hello everybody and welcome back to TipTut and welcome back to our motion graphics icons series. Before we get started, I will say if this is your first episode of this series, I recommend going and watching the camera one first because I explain in detail everything that it is we're going to be doing, whereas the rest of the episodes in these series can be watched in any order, but I go into a little bit less detail about things like keyframes and line trims and making shapes and things like that because I'm assuming you're following along and you would have done it with me anyway. So watch the camera one first and then follow the rest through. So last time we made the surfboard, which means we've made the camera, photograph, boat and surfboard now. So let's take a look at what that was like. Got our camera like this, got our photograph coming in, got our boat as well, and the last one is our surfboard, which means we're on to our second set of 4. Now you can get these JPEGs from my website, I'll be putting them up there and the link in the description, but this time around we're going to be taking a look at creating the briefcase. So without any further ado, I'm just going to dive right in and assume that you guys are up to speed with the rest of the episodes. If not, go watch the camera one and then come back. Okay, let's dive right in. Let's go to about 8 seconds in and just trim off everything else that we've got so far. And we can start afresh with our second JPEG. Lovely jubbly. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to select my rectangle tool with the JPEG also selected, which will create a mask. And I'm just going to draw a rough square over the suitcase. Okay, I'm going to press open square bracket to align my layers. And then I'm going to, with my layer selected, realign the anchor point using Motion V2 plugin. However, you can just use the pan behind tool and sort of just click and drag that anchor point around however you like. Righty-ho then, let's hit position, P to bring up the position keyframes and put this in the center of our frame. That's 960 by 540 and dive right in. The first thing you're gonna need to do in any of these situations is retrace your image using the shape tools within inside of After Effects. You could import an Illustrator shapefile, but the reason I suggest you don't is that you then have to understand how your shapes, how your image is constructed using the shapes that you have. For example, this suitcase is made up of 2 main components, the main bit and the handle. That sounds stupid, you know, and easy to remember. But if you think of it that way, it helps you when you come to thinking about how to animate it, how objects should move, how they should interact with each other, that sort of thing. So literally all I'm doing in this situation is just coming through and tracing the elements that we already have so that I can work with them all on separate layers inside of After Effects. So I've got my pen tool, for example, and I'm just going to be going through and tracing all of these different elements, like so, just until I've copied everything that we've got beforehand, but as separate layers, ready for animation. Okay, so that's the suitcase done. We're going to need the handle now as well, so I'm just going to do all the lines first, just because that makes my life a little bit easier. And then we're going to come back and do the colored sections in a second. So I'm literally just clicking and dragging with the pen tool to create these little sections here. Same for this bit of the handle. And it'll be the same for the rest of the line work. Okay, perfect. That is all the line work pretty much done. So we'll call this handle 2. This is handle 1. This is line 4. And this is line 3, this is line 2, this is line 1, and this is the body of the suitcase. Okay, then we've just got the colored sections to do, which is nice and easy. For the large brown section, we can just duplicate the body, put it underneath with Control D and then Control open square bracket. Let's get rid of the stroke and position it over the rest of the suitcase. And then grab our fill and eyedropper it to get the right color. Now, if you hold Alt and click on these little thumbnails, it switches through the main 4 options that you've got until you get a red line, and that's how you get rid of the stroke there. Okay, so that's working good. What we're going to need as well, though, is these rectangles here with a different color. Oops, I've still got that layer selected. We didn't want that. So we want these rectangles with a different color on here, like this. So we can just zoom in and get those working like that. And then I can just duplicate this one across to here and then put this back in position. And what I will do is just hide these rest of these layers briefly whilst I make sure that these are roughly lined up so they're not overlapping each other. Okay, so we're just going through and tracing these different objects now. Like so. So that's nice and neat. All right, perfect. Last thing to do then is to get our handle as well. So we can just draw this in. Going to give it a bit of extra room than it would usually need, and I'll show you why later. But we're literally just going to trace around here. Give it a bit of extra room, like I said. Bit of a guesstimate. Can always fix that if it's wrong. That's very wrong. Let's say about there. And about there. Okay, so you can see that I've underestimated those three there, but that's fine because I can just come back in, select these three corners like this, and then just drag them over. And we're sorted. Okay, great. So we've got the left, right stripes and the handle, and we can push all of those underneath the body color too. All right, we've got our suitcase. We are ready to go. I'm just going to put those in the right place, and we're ready to animate our suitcase now. Let's remind ourselves what we did with this suitcase last time. Okay, so we had the suitcase's main body come out and then open up, and then the same with the colors, and then the lines and the handle float in. That's fine, we can do that, no problem. One thing I will do though is I'm going to come in and delete this first handle and just make it all one layer. So come in and just redo, oops, this here like that, so that we've got one handle as one layer as well. Okay, that way. Oh, what's that little extra bit there? Oh, that is from the photo. That's fine. That way, we can have this extend past where it needs to be, and still have a bottom to this handle part. Cool. So let's delete that image, and we are ready to go. Going to give ourselves a bit of breathing room over here. So the first thing we need to do is have this suitcase grow like it does in the original animation. That's easy to do. We're not going to use scale because scale would make all the lines mess up. What we're actually going to do is animate the path, the physical path of the body. So if we go down to body here, open up the contents, rectangle path, we can keyframe the size, okay? From there, we're going to move ahead 15 frames. In the previous tutorials, I've talked about a split of 15 and 10 for any kind of different rollback animations, but you'll see what I mean in a minute. To do that, it's Control, Shift, and Right. That moves you 10 frames along, and then just Control, Right, 5 would get you 5 frames along. Let's just do another Control, Shift, Right to get 10 frames, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. Let's take all of these frames here and shift them along another 15. So that'll be Alt, Shift, and Right would shift the keyframes, okay? And then Alt 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on right would make them go right at a frame at a time, okay? So now we've got all our keyframes for all the different steps of our animation, but obviously at the moment, they're all the same. We need to unlink our size, and we've got width and height here, okay? So for the first one, we want both figures, to be 0. Okay, and that just gives us a little dot in the middle. On the next one, we want our height to be 0, but our width to be full. Okay, so that's going to draw this line out like that. On the one after that, we do want it to be full. We want it to kind of overshoot the height a little bit so that it settles back into itself on the last keyframe. So now it comes out, it goes up, it overshoots, and it comes back. Lovely jubbly. Let's select all those keyframes, because if we play that at the moment, it's going to look crap. Yeah, it's going to look like a PowerPoint animation. Let's hit F9, which is easy ease, or you can go to right-click keyframe assistant, easy ease, and that gives us a little bit better, you know, but still not great. So we need to go into our graph editor to make the animation look better. Click on your graph editor and you should see a little M with a tail. If you don't, it's because you are on the value graph, which will look, which will look like this. If you do see that, don't worry, just go to the second to the left-hand icon down here and choose Edit Speed Graph. These little points here at the bottom of each arc represent the different keyframes that we've just made. So I'm going to select that second keyframe and just drag the little handle until you'll notice that we get a fast to slow animation. So for that first bit, slows down, goes fast to slow. Can you see that? There you go. The next one then, we want to go fast to slow as well. So we do the same thing, like so. But on the last one, however, we want it to go slow to fast as it settles back in and retracts off of itself, like this. There you go, sorted. Looks good. Happy with that. Let's go back into our keyframes then. Excuse me, we're doing a lot of talking today. Right, up next is doing the lines that dash up and down the suitcase here. So as this comes out and stretches up and settles, okay, we're probably going to want these lines to start drawing themselves out. So we'll do those now. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Super easy. However, we only need to animate one of them, then just copy the keyframes across. So let's select number 1, hit Add Trim Paths, okay? Then under Trim Paths, we need to go to the end keyframe here and just drag it all the way down to 0. Keyframe that and move across 30 frames. Control Shift right is 10 frames, so do that 3 times. Keyframe there, drag it all the way back up to 100%. Let's select those frames, F9 for easy ease, go to your graph editor again and make them go from fast to slow. What that gives us is a nice little shoo as it grows up like that, which is perfect. Let's take those keyframes, copy them. Let's also trim our layer with Alt open square bracket, and let's do the same for the rest of these. And then one by one, let's paste these keyframes in. Now, because when I drew them, I made the starting points different. You know, I went 1, 1, and then 1, 1, and then 1, 1, 1, 1. When these animate in, they'll animate from the other side, which looks really cool. If it doesn't do that, then do it the other way around. Just animate the start rather than the end. It's really simple. Let's bring up all those keyframes by hitting U. That just shows all the keyframes that you've added. And now let's just offset these a little bit, okay? 1, 2, 3 with Control and right. And this offset. Do the same thing for each layer. Just gives us a little bit more niceties to it. Okay, perfect. Let's leave those at the end for now because that looks quite good. And let's have our handle animate then. Let's have it as it settles in. Let's have it slide up from inside of the rectangle. So to do that then, let's have it start about here. So you're going to bring up a position keyframe on the handle, okay? And we're going to keyframe that. Control Shift right and then Control right 5 times to get 15 keyframes. Again, 10 keyframes and do another keyframe like here. 10 frames and then another keyframe there. Go back to your overshoot one, overshoot it just a little bit, and go back to your first one and shimmy it all the way down like this. Now, let's add, just quickly, some easing to these with F9. And let's add a speed into them as well. And I'll show you how we're going to make this look good. Okay. So that shoots out and settles back down. But you can see it starts to float a little bit around here. Okay, because it detaches itself from the suitcase. So what we need to do with the pen tool is select these 4 points here and just drag them down a little bit. Doesn't matter how far you go, and you'll see why in a minute. Just so that it covers the rest of the line. Okay, that sounds good to me. So let's Alt open square bracket to cut that off. And now let's go to our body layer here and duplicate it. It's so important that we animated the body first. With Control close square bracket, we can make it go all the way to the top. We can press U to bring up the keyframes. And now what we're going to do is take away this stroke with Alt and clicking on there, and then give it a fill. Doesn't matter what color. Okay. Now press U to collapse that down. Go to your handle layer like so and change the track matte to alpha inverted matte. And what that does is it means anytime that this handle overlays this mask layer that we turned into, okay, don't show the object. But whenever it doesn't, show the object. There you go. Pops out. Isn't that good? Doesn't that look great? Okay. Really simple, really easy to do. And for the sake of simplicity, let's copy these keyframes. Go down to the handle fill and paste them. Do the exact same thing, okay? Cut that off with Alt, open square bracket, but this time move a couple frames over. Control 1, 2, 3, open square bracket to shift that along, and you'll see straight away. There you go. Flicks out. Nice and easy. We like that. The next step then is to animate the body here and these last two stripes. So what I'm going to do is physically copy. Instead of it overshooting that way, I'm going to have the body overshoot horizontally rather than vertically. It'll be the exact same thing as these body keyframes for the line, but it's going to be the opposite way around. So I'll take these size keyframes and I'll copy them. Making sure I line myself up like this, I'll paste them. So we should get the same thing. Which we don't. Why is that? I don't know. Okay, let's do it manually. Undo those then, and go down to our rectangle path. Try pasting them exactly there. There we go. I just didn't paste them exactly on the size thing. So those are going to come out like this. We're not going to see anything though for this first one because there's no line. So the thickness is still 0, which means you can't see anything because there's no stroke. But it is going to go that way. And then it's going to come back in and settle like this. But instead of it doing that, what I want is I want to copy this value, which is 120, and put it there to 120. Okay. Oops, that is still linked together. So we'll unlink those, make it 120. This time, we'll swap these values around. Okay, so 0, 0 is fine. But this one, we want 0 and 192. So that when this stretches out, it can sort of sploot back in a little bit. Okay, so here we can just stretch out the width a little bit. And we'll get a zoom. Isn't that good? Zoom. I like that. In fact, because we get a little hairline fracture there, we can just do that. There you go. Looks good. I quite like that, actually. A little bit different from the intro one, but hey, that's not a problem. Brilliant. Let's start doing, now, because this stretches the other way, we can start doing these straps down here much earlier. So let's go to, just as that keyframe finishes, and get our left and right straps. Excuse me. Bring up our scale, unlink the two values so the width and the height can act independently. Press open, Alt, open square bracket to cut the layer, and just keyframe both of those scales. Let's have it take 30 frames to get full. Go back to the first two and just stretch that height down to 0. Okay, nice and simple. Right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease. Go to your graph editor and give them a bit of speed. Simple as that. Let's take a look. Looks good to me. I quite like that. Cool. That's pretty much it. But as you can see on the other one, we've got some lines that sort of dash across as the suitcase grows. That's nice and easy to do. Really, really simple. So let's just jump right into it. What we need is to take our suitcase when it's finished and just create some horizontal lines, making sure that they have no fill. They do have a stroke that is the same as all the other strokes. And we'll just draw them horizontally from, say, here to here. have it start there, and we'll do the same thing from here to say out here. Have it start horizontally. We can then go down into our second shape layer and go to contents, shape, path, stroke, and make sure that our line cap is set to round. So we get these nice round edges on it like this. And then we can add a trim path to it like so. We can take that trim path with a start and end keyframe, collapse it with U so we can see what we're doing. And then go 1, 2, 3, 30 frames like this. Control, Shift, and right. Give myself another keyframe here. Set them both of those to 100 and set both of those start keyframes to 0. Okay. Take your end keyframes and shift them along 3 with Alt, right, right, right. Okay. And what that does is that gives us a little line that dashes across the page. Take all those keyframes and hit F9. That gives you easy ease as before. Go to your graph editor, make them go fast to slow. You can see that this sort of motion graphics is a lot of doing the same thing over and over. Okay, so we're happy with that, like so. We'll take those keyframes, we'll copy them, and we'll paste them here, and we'll see what that looks like. Looks good to me. I do like that. So let's take both of those layers, like so. Go over to the start of our animation here. Open square bracket puts them in the right place. I might shift one along by, say, 3 frames, like that, and we'll see what that looks like. Looks good to me. Perfect. Happy with that. So let's grab all of our layers from our suitcase, right-click, and hit Pre-Compose, making sure to move all attributes to the new composition. Let's call this one Suitcase, and hit OK. All right, now the last thing to do is just add this little bit of a spin to it as it comes in, like we've got on the surfboard, like we've got on the boat, because at the moment, it just sort of grows in like that, which isn't super great. So to do that, we need to parent this suitcase's rotation and scale values to a null object, which is what this is, which is what is providing the spin there, as you can see with that little red box, okay? Go into your timeline, press Control Shift Alt Y, which is a hell of a shortcut. However, you can go to Layer, New, Null Object and get the same thing, okay? With that null object, press Control, open square bracket to drop it down a layer, open square bracket to push its start point over, and then R Shift S to bring up rotation and scale. Keyframe those and move along 30 frames, keyframe them again. If you go back to your first ones and just type -45 to give it a bit of a spin on there, and maybe scale it down a bit to 90 as well, okay? Give yourself some easy ease on those frames, give yourself a bit of speed adjustment, and your null object now rotates in. Simple as that. Make sure the animation is finished and then parent your suitcase to your null object. And you'll notice you'll get yourself a little spin. Okay? Really as simple as that. If you want to give it a bit of extra juice, I've got a cool plugin called Ease and Whiz. And you can sort of add expressions to your animations. So I'm going to give it an elastic expression and hit apply. And all it does is gives that little null object a little bit of bounce, okay, as it comes in like this. But you don't need to do that last step. That's just for me. Okay, and that is it. We are done animating our suitcase. I quite like this one. I think it looks really good. Thank you very much for joining me. This is, I think, episode 5 out of 8 of this series. So make sure you check out the others if you haven't already. If you've got any questions and stuff, leave a comment below or on the Discord and things like that, and I'll try my best to help them out. Like I said, if you had a bit of trouble following along on this one, check out the camera one first, because I take that one really slow and do it from the beginning. So thank you very much, everybody, and I'll see you all next time when we'll be animating a cocktail.
Remember to subscribe for more tips, tricks, and tutorials. Thanks for watching.